الله أكبر. دمشق انفجار ضخم جدا في جبل قاسم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. دمشق 5/5/2013. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Transitions are the most fluid and receptive moments in the presidential cycle to have an impact on the policy process.
President Obama is condemning the results of Egypt's presidential election have just been announced. A huge crowd gathered in Cairo's
Counting known Hezbollah operatives, for example, doesn't capture the whole picture. There's a spectrum of sympathy, support, and then trained operatives.
You have parties standing by, radical Islamists and others who are ready to exploit these grievances and say that it is the United States that's to blame, or Israel that's to blame, or somebody else that's to blame.
This is a region that has been in tumult for the past 30 years. There is an undercurrent of violence that runs through it.
Next door in Syria, civil war is brewing. It could turn into sectarian and ethnic war, and that could spill over into Turkey.
The passage of time in Syria is our biggest enemy.
If we want to limit the danger of this becoming a jihadist successor regime, then we have to speed up the process of change.
And they're inflicting this steady toll of attrition, not just in combat operations, but in through defections.
But the most important thing is for the United States to achieve President Obama's policy objective of getting President Assad to step aside.
First preference, sanctions work. This issue solved peacefully. Everyone's happiest. The second preference, I think, would be that Israel could back off, and that the United States.
If I had a choice between reading the work of the Institute and attending the activities of the Institute on the one hand, or everything else having to do with the Middle East on the other, I would choose the Institute because I would be better informed that way.
I've chosen to be involved in the Institute because I think that the issues that it deals with are ones that are very, very important to me. It's an opportunity to learn things that we think we know about, but really don't understand all the issues about, and certainly don't know the nuances. And it makes us more educated, but it also makes us much more effective when we speak with other people on the issue.
It's very hard to find, whether it's a think tank or anybody in this country anymore, who takes the time to do fact-based analysis and come to a conclusion, regardless of what that conclusion might be. And that is why I really got involved with the Institute, and it appealed to me.
I know firsthand what remarkable scholars you've assembled here over the years, and have been fortunate to work with many of them, both inside the government and outside the government. We are fortunate every day for the people who serve in the administration who really were nurtured by this organization, and it really is, frankly, a terrific contribution to the nation.
It's a wonderful intellectual adventure for people that have interest in thinking about serious problems that face the nation, if not the world.
My trip to Egypt and Jordan and Israel with the Washington Institute cemented my appreciation of the importance of what the Institute does. I would have never imagined that I would have had the opportunity to meet kings and prime ministers, and the Washington Institute was at the center of all of that.
The Washington Institute has become an important policy forum for Israeli-American relations, for America's policies in the Middle East, for seeking the best way to advance peace and security.
I essentially was introduced by a friend who just told me, come on down and see what these people have to say. I did do that. I came down, and I was blown away by the quality of the information, by the intellectual power of the people who were generating this information, and I just couldn't stop coming back ever since.
When events happen, the Washington Institute is out in front of those stories, analyzing what's just occurred and making recommendations.
We can use our intelligence, we can use our cyber war capabilities, and we can...
You're going to have a sectarian war that becomes deeper and deeper.
It doesn't look like any Turkish military intervention is on the horizon. This does...
Because it's a minority-dominated regime, it makes it resilient against those kind of splits.
Well, it's the premier think tank looking at the issues of the Middle East. And over the 25 years that it's been in business, it's developed a reputation for credibility, and as a result of that credibility, has had, in my opinion, significant impact on decision-making and by our government.
These scholars are here for a reason, and the reason is to study, understand, and advise people in the government on aspects of Middle Eastern policy for the benefit of the U.S. The ability to be involved with people doing this kind of work and doing things that are so important to this country and the rest of the world is just a real privilege.
Washington Journal continues.
Well, Jeff White is here now. He is Defense Fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. And
Mr. White, there are some new headlines out of Syria this morning. This one we found at Huffington Post. Damascus shaken by explosions. Now, these are new explosions. Syrian state TV says that Israel hit a military center. Now, this on top of something that happened just a day or two ago. Can you give us the update?
Basically, it looks very much like the Israelis were striking military facilities in the Damascus area, especially ones associated with the potential transfer of weapons to Hezbollah. But in the process, it looks like they may well have struck some Syrian conventional military facilities.
What does this mean to the equation there?
Well, it means that Israel is becoming increasingly active in asserting its red lines. The Israelis have a very is becoming increasingly active in asserting its red lines. The Israelis have a very significant concern that major strategic type weapons will be transferred to Hezbollah. Looks like they saw some indications that was about to happen, and they went after those went after the facilities where those weapons were.
Has there been a U.S. reaction to these Israeli attacks?
It seems very muted. Basically, we more or less confirmed that there were attacks, but we didn't condemn them. I don't think we're going to condemn them. I think our position is going to be not to aggravate the situation or not to try and put anybody in a corner. On these actions.
What would you expect in terms of a reaction or a response, perhaps, by Syria or anyone who's in support of the government at this point?
I think we'll see a lot of talk, and we're already seeing some of that. Statements out of the Syrian government that this is a declaration of war by Israel, and so on. But I don't think we'll see much, more than talk. There's always the possibility of some military-type reaction by Syria or maybe even by Hezbollah, but I don't think that's likely. I think both the Syrian government and Hezbollah will be very cautious. They certainly don't want to get Israel yet more directly involved. They're already in a very significant fight with the Syrian rebels, and I don't think they want to open up another front, especially with a military power like Israel.
Phone numbers on the bottom of the screen for our guest, Jeff White of the Washington Institute. Lines for Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. We're doing an update here on Syria. Before we get to your calls, I want to show you a comment from the President on Syria in response to some Secretary Hagel comments on lethal aid to the rebels. Here's a look.
What Secretary Hagel said today is what I've been saying now for months, which is we are continually evaluating the situation on the ground, working with our international partners to find the best way to move a political transition that has Assad leaving, stabilizes the country, ends the killing, and allows the Syrian people to determine their own destiny. And we've made enormous investments, not just in humanitarian aid, but also in helping the opposition organize itself and make sure that it has a consistent vision about how it's operating. And as we've seen evidence of further bloodshed, potential use of chemical weapons inside of Syria, what I've said is that we're going to look at all options. We know that there are countries that are currently providing lethal aid to the opposition. We also know that the Assad regime is getting not just lethal aid, but also training and support from countries outside of Syria. And we want to evaluate and make sure that every step that we take advances the day when Assad is gone.
Jeff White, what's your assessment of the aid so far and its potential effectiveness moving forward?
I think we've done a reasonably good job on the humanitarian side. There's some questions over whether or not we're getting credit for providing humanitarian aid, but I think we've done a lot to help the Syrian people with medical aid, with food.
الله أكبر دمشق انفجار ضخم جدا في جبل قاسم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل الله أكبر الله أكبر دمشق 5/5/2013 Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.